The call came in late at night during one of the coldest weeks of the winter, whispering about a ghost haunting an abandoned property at the edge of town. We arrived at the dilapidated house with flashlights cutting through the darkness, unsure of what we would find in the freezing silence. In the backyard, chained to a rusted radiator that offered no heat, we found him curled up in a tight ball on the frozen dirt. He wasn't just thin, he was a biological impossibility, a living skeleton wrapped in paper-thin skin that revealed every single bone in his body. When our lights hit him, he didn't lift his head or bark. He simply opened one ice-blue eye that was filled with a devastating mixture of fear and resignation. He weighed only 5 pounds when we found him, a weight that is terrifyingly low for a dog that should be a powerful 50-pound Siberian Husky. We were afraid to touch him at first, terrified that his brittle bones might snap under the pressure of even the gentlest human hands. Breaking the heavy metal chain that had held him prisoner for who knows how long felt like breaking a curse that had been placed on this innocent soul. He had no muscle mass left to stand, so we had to lift him onto a stretcher, as if we were handling delicate antique glass. As we carried him to the van, his head lolled back against my chest, and I could feel his heart beating slowly and weakly against his protruding ribs. The smell of starvation is distinct and unforgettable. It is the smell of a body that has begun to consume itself just to keep the vital organs functioning. Inside the heated rescue vehicle, he started to shiver violently. Not just from the cold, but from the shock of finally feeling warmth after months of freezing. We named him Finn, hoping that he would find the strength to finish this fight and start a new chapter of life that didn't involve pain. The drive to the emergency veterinary clinic was silent and tense, with every bump in the road making us wince on his behalf. When we placed him on the metal examination table, the vet team gasped audibly, shocked that a creature in this condition was still breathing. His body condition score was a 1 out of 9, the lowest possible score a living animal can receive before being declared deceased. His temperature was dangerously low, his gums were pale white, and his eyes were sunken deep into his skull from severe dehydration. They told us that his body had entered starvation mode, shutting down non-essential functions like digestion and temperature regulation to protect the brain and heart. The most dangerous part of rescuing a starving dog is not the hunger itself, but the risk of refeeding syndrome, which can kill them if they eat too fast. We had to feed him tiny amounts of specialized liquid food every 2 hours, forcing his stomach to remember how to work without overwhelming his system. That first night, I sat on the floor of his kennel, watching the rise and fall of his chest, terrified that each breath would be his last. He was too weak to lift his head to drink water, so we had to use a syringe to drip fluids gently onto his tongue. For the first 3 days, Finn existed in a twilight state between life and death, sleeping for 20 hours a day as his body tried to repair the damage. He had pressure sores on his hips and elbows from lying on the hard ground, without any body fat to cushion his bones. We gently massaged his limbs to keep the blood flowing, whispering promises to him that he would never be cold or hungry again. On the 4th day, we saw the first flicker of the spirit that is famous in the husky breed, a tiny spark of stubbornness. He tried to stand up on his trembling legs, his paws sliding on the floor, but he collapsed after only a few seconds of effort. Instead of giving up, he let out a frustrated huff, a small sound that told us he was angry at his own weakness. It was heartbreaking to watch him try to be a dog when his body was failing him, but it was also incredibly inspiring. By the end of the first week, he had gained 2 pounds, which doesn't sound like much, but for him, it was the difference between life and death. His blue eyes, which had been dull and cloudy, started to clear, revealing an intelligence and curiosity that had been buried under the suffering. The first time he stood up on his own and walked to the water bowl, the entire staff of the sanctuary stopped what they were doing to watch. He walked like a newborn deer, wobbly and uncoordinated, but he made it to the bowl and drank without help for the first time. We celebrated that small victory with tears in our eyes, knowing that the long road to recovery had officially begun. But starvation leaves mental scars that take much longer to heal than the physical ones, as we would soon discover. Finn developed severe food anxiety, panicking whenever his bowl was empty and eating with a frantic speed that we had to control with puzzle feeders. He would hide pieces of kibble under his blanket, hoarding them for later because he didn't believe that the food would keep coming. We had to teach him that the refrigerator was full, that the pantry was stocked, and that he would never have to hunt or beg again. To build his muscle back, we started hydrotherapy, lowering him into a warm water tank with a treadmill to support his weight. The water allowed him to move his legs without the pressure of gravity hurting his joints, and he looked confused but relaxed in the warmth. Week by week, the transformation was slow but steady, like watching a Polaroid photograph slowly develop into a clear image. The gray, patchy skin that covered his ribs began to grow a layer of soft white down, the beginning of his beautiful double coat. He gained 10 pounds, then 15, and suddenly he didn't look like a skeleton anymore. He looked like a lanky, awkward teenager. His personality began to emerge from the shell, and we realized that Finn was not just a survivor, he was a comedian. Huskies are known for being vocal, and one morning we walked in to hear him talking to his neighbor in the next kennel. It started as a low woo-woo sound and escalated into a full-blown husky aria, singing the song of his people for everyone to hear. He discovered toys for the first time in his life, and his reaction to a squeaky, plush hedgehog was pure, unadulterated joy. He would toss the hedgehog into the air, pounce on it, and then look at us with a goofy grin, inviting us to join the game. But he still had moments of fear, especially when he saw a leash, which likely reminded him of the chain that had bound him. We had to desensitize him slowly, letting him wear a lightweight slip lead around the kennel while giving him high-value treats. The first time we took him outside to the play yard, he froze at the doorway, staring at the open sky with suspicion. He had lived outside in the cold for so long that he didn't understand that outside could also mean fun, sun, and freedom. I sat in the grass a few feet away from him, holding a ball, and waited for him to make the choice to step out. It took 20 minutes of coaxing, but he finally took a brave step onto the grass, sniffing the air deeply. Then something clicked in his brain, an ancient instinct that told him he was born to run, not to be chained. He took off like a rocket, running laps around the yard with a speed and agility that left us breathless. It was hard to believe that this blurring white streak was the same animal that we had carried on a stretcher just 6 weeks ago. He ran until he was panting and happy, collapsing in the sun with his tongue lolling out, looking like the king of the world. By month 3, Finn tipped the scales at 40 pounds, nearing his healthy weight, and his coat had exploded into a thick, fluffy cloud. He was unrecognizable from the skeleton dog photos we had taken on day 1. He was now a majestic, stunning creature. We started introducing him to other dogs, hoping that his isolation hadn't destroyed his social skills with his own kind. He was hesitant at first, hiding behind my legs, but a gentle female golden retriever named Bella showed him the ropes. Within an hour, they were wrestling in the yard, playing tag, and sharing water from the same bowl without any resource guarding. It was the final piece of the puzzle. Finn had healed physically, mentally, and socially, and he was ready for a home. Finding the right home for a husky is always a challenge because they need exercise, stimulation, and a lot of patience. We received hundreds of applications for him because his story had touched so many people on our social media pages. We narrowed it down to a family who had experience with the breed and who had another husky for Finn to play with. The day of the meet and greet was nerve-wracking because we had all fallen in love with this goofy, resilient survivor. When the family walked in, Finn didn't hide. He walked right up to the father and buried his nose in the man's jacket pocket. He sensed their kindness immediately, and when their female husky engaged him in play, he didn't hesitate to join in. Watching him drive away in the back of their SUV was one of the hardest and happiest moments of my entire life. We saw him looking out the back window, his ears perked up, watching the sanctuary fade into the distance as he headed toward his forever. 6 months later, we received a video update from the family that made everyone in our office cry happy tears. The video showed Finn hiking up a mountain trail wearing a backpack, looking strong, confident, and utterly magnificent. He weighed a healthy 55 pounds. His coat was gleaming in the sun, and he looked back at the camera with a huge smile. The caption read, "From 5 pounds to 50 pounds, from a chain to the top of the world. Thank you for saving him." It is easy to look at a starving animal and feel despair, to feel like the problem is too big and too cruel to fix. But Finn taught us that beneath the ribs and the scars there is a spirit that is desperate to live and to love. He taught us that the body can heal from almost anything, if the soul is given enough reason to keep fighting. He is no longer defined by the radiator he was chained to, or the hunger that almost took his life. He is defined by the mountain he just climbed and the family that tucks him into a warm bed every single night. Every time I look at his before photo, I am reminded of the cruelty that exists in the world, and it makes me angry. But then I look at his after photo, and I am reminded of the resilience that exists in animals, and it gives me hope. Finn won the lottery of life, but there are thousands of other dogs out there right now, waiting for their miracle. They are waiting in backyards, in shelters, and on the streets, hoping that someone will stop and see them. If Finn's journey from a skeleton to a superstar touched your heart, please consider helping your local shelter or rescue group. You don't have to be a professional rescuer to make a difference. You just have to be willing to open your eyes and act. Please like this video to help the algorithm share Finn's story with the world, because awareness saves lives. Subscribe to the Second Chance Sanctuary to witness more impossible transformations and to be part of our rescue family. And tell us in the comments below, have you ever helped an animal recover from a difficult past? We want to hear your story. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life forever. We will see you in the next rescue video, where we will continue to fight for the underdogs who have no one else.